นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ The other day we had an earthquake near the monastery, brief, with no real damage, but it always reminds me of that story of one time the Buddha thought that Lord Indra, the head of the Deva realm, Tawadingsa Deva realm, and all his retinue were getting a little bit intoxicated with the pleasures of the heaven realms, and they needed reminding that everything is impermanent. So he gave the job to Venerable Mahamoggallana, who was foremost in the psychic powers of all the monks, the students of the Buddha, and gave him the instruction to wake them up a bit. So Mahamoggallana went up to the heaven realm and tapped his foot on the ground of the heaven realm. But because of his great psychic ability, one tap of his foot shook the whole heaven realm. So it was a heavenly earthquake. And Indra's palace was vibrated, shaken by this movement, this ripple of psychic energy, I guess you'd call it. Everybody panicked, except for Indra, who immediately knew what it was, because he's very smart, very wise. And he said, "Oh, we've been reminded that we should be practicing the Dhamma more. Everything is impermanent." Because, of course, when you're intoxicated, you forget that. Whether it's literal intoxication with drink or drugs, or just intoxicated with sense pleasures of different kinds. Many things in life intoxicate us. Even suffering intoxicates us. We get lost in it, deluded by it. So that was a heavenly wake-up call. Just as more earthly earthquakes, bushfires, floods, wars, famines, and the kind of most basic kinds of difficulties and challenges that human beings face also wake us up to the impermanence of life and the world we live in. This waking up to the truth of impermanence and the kind of unreliability or uncertainties of life is a factor for the arising of heedfulness, apamada, which is a quality that the Buddha praised, and it kind of captures all the other qualities and practices and things we develop as Buddhists following the teachings of the Buddha. Apamada, or heedfulness, covers everything. If you remember the very last words of the Buddha, the last formal teaching of the Buddha, Vaya Dhamma Sankhara Apamadena Sampadeta. All conditions are impermanent. That means physical and mental phenomena, subject to change. Therefore, venerables, talking to the monks, complete your practice of this path for the end of suffering with heedfulness. So heedfulness is a quality that we're constantly required to develop. It's the direct opposite of intoxication, when you become heedless. And at every moment of your practice, every stage of your practice, stage of your life, you could say, heedlessness can slip in. We can slip into complacency, become intoxicated with success, or just whatever we've achieved, and let time slip by without furthering our practice. For a Buddhist monk, the Buddha warned about this. He talked about how the practice for the end of suffering, he compared it to searching for the heartwood of a tree. If you see in the forest here, we have lots of trees. Some of them die, but they're still standing. The reason they're still standing even after they're dead is because they have strong heartwood, a strong bit of wood that holds the tree up. That's like liberation, freedom from suffering that we're seeking in our practice. The heartwood, the strong stuff. But a tree doesn't just have heartwood, it also has softwood. It has the kind of sap, pulpy stuff. It has the bark, the inner bark, the outer bark. It has leaves and twigs. There's a few different parts to a tree. And the heartwood is the bit in the middle, so it's not obvious, and not easy necessarily. It's not easy to access. You need to keep practicing, or keep cutting, or searching to get to it. That's why we need heedfulness, to be aware, or haven't reached the heartwood yet. Or sometimes we accept the twigs and the leaves as good enough. The Buddha talked about, say, a monk who was still careless or heedless in their practice. They attain a certain level of, say, support from the lay people, get gains and offerings, and have a certain reputation. They can survive as a monk very well. So they become complacent, heedless. So that's like grasping the twigs and the leaves and saying, well, this is it, this is the heartwood, good enough. When of course it's not the heartwood. And twigs and leaves are not very strong, they don't last very long, they blow away, they wither away easily. So gains and reputation are not very reliable results from the practice, but they're still intoxicating. You get that feeling, maybe it's good enough, don't need more than this, I can get by. Or the Buddha said, even having achieved support, gains, offerings, praise from the laity, a monk may put his effort into developing virtue, virtuous conduct, not harming others through speech, actions, which is something good. It's wholesome, it's good, a good result of the practice. But the monk may take that as good enough and stop there, and may even look down on others who are not so virtuous, don't keep the rules so well, may disparage them, look down on them with a conceit, oh, I have virtue, they don't, or they're not as virtuous as me. And on the Buddha explained how we get caught or intoxicated even with the fruits of the practice, so whether it's virtue or even samadhi. One can attain states of calm, samadhi, which are good because it frees your mind from a lot of immediate stress when your mind is calm, settled, unified, peaceful. It's not a bad thing, but it can also be intoxicating in the sense that we accept it as good enough. If you've developed a certain ability with meditation, you know how to do it, you can calm your mind down in most situations, on most days, then it's very easy to, again, accept this as good enough. But it's still not the heartwood of the tree, it's still not the goal of the practice. You might call it the sapwood, or the bark, the inner bark, the sapwood. Even attaining samadhi, the monk has to go on to practice with heedfulness. And the danger is you attain samadhi, you feel it's good enough. You may even look down on other people and say, well, they don't have samadhi like me, I'm better than them. Even insight, what the Buddha called, what we just chanted, knowledge and vision, jnana dasana, can still be a basis for heedlessness or complacency. Because as you practice, you may attain virtue and samadhi, may even gain some insight into the impermanent nature of the world, and you understand many of the Buddha's teachings and have insight up to a one level, or sometimes, occasionally have insight. But if it hasn't completely uprooted craving, attachment, sense of self, one hasn't completely been liberated, the mind is not liberated. One may, with insight, attain temporary liberation of mind. And you let go of your stress, you think, oh, this is good enough. Whatever problem, whatever stress, suffering you had, you have insight into it as impermanent, as not self, you can let go of it. But there's still more there. The causes and conditions for more stress and suffering are still there, but you don't see it. So you become heedless. So even that's not the heartwood. The only thing the Buddha said is the heartwood is complete liberation of the mind, complete unshakable insight or knowledge and vision into the way things are, so that there's no more room for intoxication and complacency. One reaches the heartwood. The only way one can continue to do that, to reach that, is by cultivating this quality of heedfulness, appamada. Not accepting whatever one has achieved so far as the goal, but to keep practicing, keep searching. One of Luang Por Chah's teachings that's so useful for this is the teaching to reflect on the uncertainty even of the results of the practice or what you've achieved. It's not sure. Because if you still have the roots of intoxication in your mind, still have attachment, craving, desires, they still can be triggered, still can come up into your mind, then it's not sure, isn't it? Whatever insight or whatever understanding you've gained may disappear or fade, and you may be back with suffering again. And this has caught out many practitioners over the years, monks and lay people. They thought they knew it all, and maybe they did know many things. That's the trouble. So one of the most subtlest defilements is conceit forms around the knowledge, understanding that you've attained, and you can explain the Dhamma and you seem to know it all, but still that subtle attachment can slip in, or subtle conceit maybe look down on those who don't know as much as you. Oh, they don't know what I know. It can happen. So one has to keep practicing heedfulness, and Lumpocha's reflection to help that. It's not sure. Whatever you've attained, wherever you're at, is not sure. Maybe you are. So people would ask Lumpocha if such and such a monk was an arahant. We'd say maybe they are, maybe they're not. They know for themselves. We say it's pachatang veditabo vinyuhi. And the wise know for themselves. It's a personal thing. Any realization, say the highest realizations that one can have, cannot really be put well into words. Something each individual has to know for themselves. But because realizations, insights, understandings one has can fade, then there has to be this reflection on, oh, it's not sure. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. This is the attitude of someone who's heedful, careful. They don't sit back, they're not complacent in their practice. As we go about our practice, you might notice this slipping in at any stage in your practice. You say, oh, I know how to meditate. Maybe you know the technique, maybe you've already achieved something, you can experience some peace already. But how solid, how permanent, how reliable is that peace that you've achieved? A lot of the time one of the ways we get deluded or intoxicated is we have a strong memory of an experience we've had. And we hold on to that. We can remember previously, oh, I was peaceful, had such insight. And we believe we've let go of many things because of that insight. Some insight that, oh, the body is impermanent, the world, the things I own are impermanent, other people, they're all impermanent. It seems like we let go of everything. But it's just a memory of a previous insight. And then little by little we create further attachments and delusions without realizing, because you hold on to that previous insight as a fixed, permanent understanding in the mind. But it's just a memory of that state of peace or that understanding. It's not, you might say, it's not current, it's not present in the mind all the time. If one uses the reflection on impermanence, it can help to stem that kind of complacency or the conceit, I know, I've done it, I have this insight, I have attained peace. It's actually a wise way to practice. We have to keep employing it with ourselves, obviously with other people, but other people, that's their job to do that. We have to do it mainly with ourselves, don't we? Who do we know best is ourselves. Who are we practicing? Who does this practice? Well, ourselves. You notice one thing, when people have practiced for a while, they know the way of practice, the way of meditation, they know about the precepts, keep precepts maybe, they can explain the Dhamma, then one of the ways we get careless or heedless is we drop things, drop rules of practice, whether it's a precept or some kind of rule of practice. So like for a Buddhist monk, we keep, as long as we're a monk, we keep the Vinaya rules, the Vinaya training rules until we die. The Buddha didn't allow those who know, the arahants, to drop the rules. He said keep the rules. To be an example, at the very least, to be an example to others and for the harmony of the Sangha, to be an example to the new ones. A few minor rules one may drop when ill, there's allowances for when a bhikkhu is ill, but generally speaking we keep all the rules as long as we're a monk, till the day we die. Because it's not sure. Maybe you're arahant, maybe enlightened, but maybe not. Ajahn Chah used to say there's a lot of self-proclaimed arahants who have now disrobed and gone off and got married. It's not sure. Things can return, the mind can return to a state of more worldly thinking because of the intoxication with whatever one has achieved. Success, gains, fame, fortune. On the outside, the twigs and the branches and the leaves. Or even the samadhi and the insight on the inside, but it's not yet sustained or permanent. You see sometimes, but not all the time. Different cravings and attachments can slip back into the way you think, the way you relate to the world without realizing. Every day we get older as human beings. And as you get older, that changes things, changes your body, changes your energy level, gives you new challenges with sickness and aging. The longer you live in the world, if you're not heedful, then it's easy to put down new roots, create new attachments, if you're not careful. And it will come up out of the blue sometimes. Sometimes a monk thinks, oh, I've attained this, I've attained that, and then out of the blue suddenly they realise they're still thinking just like they used to think, or even worse than they used to think. It can happen. Lust can come up, anger can come up, greed can come up for anyone. And this is why the Buddha said we have to bring the path of practice to completion with heedfulness, appamada. It's just the same for laity. Earthquakes don't choose. They don't say, oh, I'll just affect this group of people or not that. Earthquakes are pretty universal. Bushfires, floods, wars, you just can't guarantee you'll be safe, everything will be all right for yourself. That's a wise attitude to the world, isn't it? You don't know what's coming, not to be full of paranoia and fear, but just to be wise to the fact everything is uncertain, it's not sure. The economy is not sure, society is not sure, our individual life situation not sure, our health is not sure, people around us not sure, not certain. So we use it as our way just to keep the mind alert, not to get too intoxicated with things. But because the reflection on uncertainty, not sure, is so valuable, useful, you've always got something to help you get through the unexpected changes in life. Oh, it's not sure. People are not sure. They always present themselves one way when you first meet them, but then you get to know them, and sometimes they're better than you realize. Sometimes they're worse. As you meditate, you can use it to help let go of so many things that come up. You put it into a box or to the side. You say, "Oh, this emotion is not sure. How long will it last? Will it be here tomorrow? Will I feel like this tomorrow? This plan I have in my mind, will it happen as I'm expecting, as I hope? Or will it all be different? When things come to fruition, when it all comes up, will it actually be the way I imagine in my mind?" It's not sure, is it? Generally we have a kind of list of expectations in our mind. We're expecting this to happen and that to happen with our life, with our relationships, our work, our health, our this, our that. Just sit and contemplate that for a while, and you realize very rarely does anything happen according to the list that you've got in your mind. It should be like this. If I get this, then that will happen, and everything will be all right. Everything's all right for a little while. A new problem or a new issue or some change. It's not sure, not certain. It just keeps you sober, meaning you're not getting too lost in your imagination and your plans. And if things do go wrong and you experience some suffering, well, that's not sure too. You can use it to your advantage. You have some pain, physical pain or mental pain, it's not sure. How long will it last? And sometimes you can't avoid things. What we tend to do is try and run away from suffering, don't we? We don't want any suffering, any discomfort in our mind or our body. We tend to run away. But it's also the place where we learn, isn't it? You learn from suffering. Why am I suffering? What is the nature of this suffering? How long will it last? What is it? Maybe it's just a few thoughts or some strong feeling comes up, but then it passes away again. Just as we can get attached to attainments and think, oh, I know, now I've seen, now I've got this, now I've got that. We also get attached to suffering, say, oh, now I'm suffering. But when you establish some mindfulness and contemplate impermanence, maybe that suffering is also, it's just a very fleeting experience quite often. But then you attach to the memory. Oh, I am the one who is suffering. I've had this problem bothering me for so long. But ask yourself, investigate, is it really a constant pain and problem, or is it just the memory of some painful experiences you've had? Because we attach to memory, to perceptions as well as thoughts, feelings. So you may attach to that perception, I am suffering, I have this suffering in my life. I have this problem with my family member or my friend or my enemy. I have this problem. But how real is that problem? Is it actually that you're in pain all the time because of this person and what they've said or what they've done? Or is it just something that maybe crops up once in a while? It's not that there's nothing there, but generally speaking, there's no pain, no problem. It's just you carrying around the memory. I am like if you make a mistake, or fail at something, or make a mistake, something doesn't work out, and you carry around the memory of that. I am the one who made this mistake. I am no good. I mean, a mistake is usually a very quick thing, isn't it? It may have some long-term consequences, but everything is changing. But if you cling to the memory, and I hold on to that and identify with that, and then that becomes suffering that you keep feeding. So reflect on it. How permanent is it? What is it? It's a feeling, a thought, a perception, but it's not sure. Sometimes when you're stuck on something, you think, I'm the one suffering. Then you don't even notice when you're not suffering and you feel happy or you feel good. Because it doesn't fit with your perceptions, you just don't give it any importance in your mind. Doesn't fit with the storyline. So I'm the one suffering, so any good stuff gets ignored. If you use the reflection on it's not sure, it's uncertain, you can really expose that or reveal to you where you perhaps are attaching too much, getting stuck on just a particular perception or memory about something, holding on where you need to just see, well, it's impermanent, let it go. So the Buddha was encouraging us to keep looking and learning, to be heedful, careful, not to become complacent, not to accept things at face value. Keep investigating the truth and using that. We've got many good teachings and techniques to use, so really employ them, use them to help you not to become intoxicated with the world or forget the Dhamma, forget the truth. I'll leave you with these reflections tonight.